Please put your cell phones on silent and fill in the questionnaire to get more to develop the upcoming events. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate and the Merciful. On behalf of His Excellency Dr. Jamal Sanad Swedi, Director General of the Emmet Center for Strategic Studies and Research, I would like to welcome all of you to the Emmet Center for Strategic Studies and Research as we meet today in a lecture entitled The Arabian Gulf Elites and the Role in the Renaissance of the Region, which will be given by His Excellency Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani, Professor of International Relations and Research in Social History at the Center for Historical Studies in the Universities of Bahrain, Kingdom of Bahrain. Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani is a professor of International Relations, from Esther University, and a master's degree in and 2 diplomas in the Southeast Asian Affairs and Indian Venezuela and Southeast Asian Affairs from Boston University. He is an expert in Asian affairs and social history. Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani has worked as a visiting professor of international relations in a number of universities and higher GCC institutes. Over the past 30 years, he participated in many international conferences and local and regional conferences related to Asia and the Arab-Asian relations and the dialogue between civilizations and the issues of security and development. Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani has many weekly analytical articles in major Gulf newspapers, and he has also contributed to a number of periodicals, and he has authored numerous books in historical and social fields, in addition to 5 novels. The 15th Arab Media Forum, organized in 2016, granted him the Arab Media Award for Best Political Article. Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani speaks several languages, including English, French, Farsi, and Hindi, in addition to a basic knowledge of German, Greek, and Finnish. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and pleasure to call upon His Excellency Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani to give his lecture. Please, the floor is yours, Dr. Abdullah. Good evening to all of you. Please allow me at the beginning to convey to you the greetings of your brothers in your youngest sister country, Bahrain, the Kingdom of Bahrain. And please also allow me to express my gratitude to the Emmet Center for Strategic Studies and Research, as represented in His Excellency Professor Jamal Aswedi, for his kind invitation to let me speak in front of you. I'd also like to seize this opportunity to congratulate the Emmet Center for Strategic Studies and Research in advance on the Silver Jubilee of the Center, which will coincide March next year. May Allah make it a blessed year for the GCC and for the GCC leaders and the people and leaders of the GCC. Like any community which has residence, life, and movement, GCC communities has been and continues to have a large number of outstanding leaders and prominent figures in different domains. The problem is that no spotlight, or not enough spotlight, was given to the GCC elites in the sufficient manner, and nobody has written anything about them. Consequently, the phenomena, especially among the people who do not live in the GCC region, has had the misconception that the GCC region is not full of any innovation, does not have any innovation. It just has a number of camels, oil fields, and Bedouins and camels. Of course, we take pride in camels and deserts because they are a sign of our civilization. What's even worse is that our educational curricula have nothing actually about the GCC elites. Our students today may know many details about Al-Aqad and Taha Hussein, Al-Mazani and Al-Baroudi, Najib Mahfouz, Ihsan Abdul Quddus, and maybe even Nizar Qabbani and Adonis. But on the other hand, they don't really know anything about Abdullah Zaid, Ibrahim Al-Ayed in Bahrain, Hamad Al-Jasir in Saudi Arabia, Abdulaziz Hussein and Mishal Al-Adwani in Kuwait, or about Al-Midfa and Al-Majid in the UAE. They don't know much about them. That is why my project came in. That's where my project comes in. I worked on this project for around 4 or 5 years, which focuses on social history. Because what we really miss here in the GCC region is writing history about the movement of our people and families and how they develop themselves and enhance their lives starting from scratch. Now, the first edition of this project is in a book that spans 700 pages and covers 100 prominent figures. The second edition of the book is also another 700 pages, which is currently in printing press. And there will be other sections and other editions of the book. Now, who do we mean by Arabian Gulf elites? I do believe that Arabian Gulf elites, in my own perspective, they include the technocrats who have climbed the ladders of knowledge and higher academic specializations before working in the government and doing their very best to enhance their homelands and build a new state. And they also include politicians. The politicians who have taken part in active political and social movements to ensure the independence of their countries. And those Arabian Gulf elites include the prominent economic figures and business people who have had built names for themselves in the business world and who have been shouldering development projects in their homelands, and they have used their own fortunes and blessings to do good to humanity. Among them were people who invested their knowledge in the field of culture and have become prominent figures in literature and great innovators in the field of literature and media as well. And among them are those who used their talents to enhance artistic talents through TV, theaters and plays and music. And among them also some people who have graduated, some GCC elites who graduated from the top-notch universities in the world and specialized in highly technical domains. What really makes Arabian Gulf elites stand out from the crowd in the past, two main things. The first element is that they were open to others. They had openness to others. They were ready to adopt and accept all new and highly developed concepts. This is the exact opposite of what was narrated by some Orientalists, Western Orientalists, in their writings about the cautiousness and rejection they met when they faced the Arabian Gulf elites in terms of dealing with the new developments and modern civilization, and their inability to adapt to the new communities where they traveled for study or for business or for both. The second element is that Arabian Gulf elites have been working diligently and very keen on understanding the different things, the different concepts that they had been they had access to, and if we follow the migrations of the Arabian Gulf elites that were initiated in the 18th and 19th centuries, these elites left from Najd towards Zubair, Kuwait and Bahrain and reached Iraq, Egypt and Levant. They were escaping from the harsh life and difficult circumstances in the Arabian Peninsula. Those tribes and those people managed to merge quickly into these different civilizations and different countries, and they became prominent people as business people and prominent figures. They established good relations and earned the respect in the new communities they migrated to. This is also true of the Arabian Gulf elites who had been working as pearl divers and who migrated to India. Some of them left for Mumbai to sell the natural pearls in Moti Bazar market in Mumbai, or the other ones who traveled to Mumbai and Pompeii and the other cities like Kolkata, Hyderabad, and Milbar to establish continuous business relations with their Indian counterparts, to use those relations to import the different things that the communities needs, including incense and clothes and so on. All the other Arabian Gulf elites who travel to India to get to know advanced knowledge, especially the English language back then. So, on the sidelines of this phenomena that took place in the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, the clearest manifestation of this phenomenon was the rise of Pompeii as one of the largest locations of having or hosting GCC or Arabian Gulf region elites who lived there, learned a lot of things, and left their own impact. And if you visit Pompeii today, you will find the area of Blaba and Shari Muhammad Ali Road in Pompeii, and Shari Ibrahim Ahmadallah Road, and the Church Gate. Among them, we can mention a number of names: Al-Bassam, Al-Ghadi, Al-Qusaybi, Al-Fuzan, and Al-Fadl from Najd, and Al-Zayna, and Al-Abd al-Jawad, and Al-Sabban, and Al-Banaj from Hijaz, and Al-Abd al-Raziq, and Al-Dassan, and Al-Ibrahim, and Al-Mashari, Al-Shaya, Al-Khalid, Al-Ghadim, Al-Marzouk, and Al-Flij, and Al-Hmidi, and Al-Sagar, and Al-Gharaballi, and Al-Tharathi, and Al-Harun, and Al-Rumi from Kuwait. From Bahrain, we may have Al-Zayani, Al-Fakhr, Al-Watar, Mustafa Abdul Latif Bastaki, and Al-Kanu. And from the UAE, we may mention the Al-Midfa from Sharjah, and Al-Sara, Al-Budur, Al-Lutah, Al-Numan, Al-Nabuda from Dubai, in addition to the Sheikh Qasim bin Muhammad Al-Thani, the real founder of the Sharjah Emir. Now, Al-Thani, the real founder of Qatar. The thing that we notice now is that our students do not know that the first individual who reached Hollywood and acted in a movie was not really an American guy, was not really Omar Sharif. He was a guy from Najd, from Al-Qasim. His name is called Khalil al-Rawaf. They don't know that the largest railway station in Pompeii, in India, was called Jasim. It was related to or associated to Jasim al-Ibrahim, a Kuwaiti pearl trader whose fortune in the 19th century reached 15 million rupee, Indian rupee. Our students don't know about that. They don't know that someone like Yusuf Lutf Ali Khunji traveled to Manchester. He's a Bahraini citizen. He traveled to Manchester in the 1932 to establish a textile factory. They don't know that a lady like Aisha Yatim, a Bahraini lady, traveled in the year 1920 to study overseas. They don't know that someone like Muhammad Farouk Arshi traveled to Paris in the year 1918 and established a store to sell rare jewelry in Lafayette in Paris, which was for the large pearl and gold sellers and gold jewelry sellers. They don't know that the man of good deeds and the Hajj Muhammad Ali Zayna reached Paris in the year 1920. He was the first Arab individual to own some real estate in the heart of Champs-Élysées in France. Many of our students don't know about that because in our curricula we do not tell them about those prominent Arabian Gulf elites. The newspapers and books do not mention anything about them. Now let's get back to the main topic here. If we want another piece of evidence to manifest the capabilities of Arabian Gulf elites in the post-oil era or in the post-discovery of oil era, to start after the discovery of oil, to promote their capabilities and enhance their capabilities, their quick ability to cope with the advent of foreign oil exploration companies in the region. Those companies established what can be called the new oil-based cities with their Western style and Western lifestyle, and in addition to the business they conducted in them, those elites quickly merged and adapted to this new phenomena, and many of the people of the region were enabled to climb to the top of the economic ladder, and also travel to the USA and Europe to enroll in the best universities and return back home with the excellent academic qualifications. Of course, this is similar to what happened in many other GCC countries, except for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as many of the citizens started working at the new official departments which were established by the British colonial authorities, especially in Bahrain. It was beneficial in this context. Actually, it is noteworthy here that something similar to this happened also when the foreign missionaries came to Kuwait and Bahrain to establish schools and clinics at the beginning of the 19th century. Many families started sending their children to those missionaries and missionaries' schools and learned the English language, because it was the main element in which that would enable you to enter the business world. The study of the history of Arabian Gulf elites and highlighting their progress and their scientific and professional progress and their social and cultural activities and what they faced in terms of difficulties and challenges to develop their own capabilities and enhance their own communities and enlighten their citizens and underscore the pillars of development in their countries is something of paramount importance. And it requires continuous methodological work and a continuous effort that continues relentlessly. Not because highlighting those stories is just a source of wisdom, but also to teach our younger generation, those new generations who have lived with a silver spoon in their mouths and do not read any books anymore, we need to give them panoramic view of what their fathers and forefathers used to live and the harsh life they used to live and the difficult circumstances they faced. And despite all of these difficulties, they managed to make a name for themselves and start from scratch. No doubt that the recipients of this information through this kind of documentation, the documentation of the biographies of those elites, they will find many concepts that have to do with the transfer and shift from underdeveloped to a developed community with the different aspects of innovation and creativity. Moreover, they will read a bright aspect about a bright aspect of the history of the GCC. The GCC is not made of oil only, as highlighted by His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Ghanem al-Mameihi in his book Oil. The GCC is not just a barrel of oil, which was issued in the 1986, in the year 1986. It is true we have oil in the GCC, but we still have values, we have civilization, we have genuine traditions, and people who built their homelands from scratch and defended their homelands. Moreover, we have GCC communities that have been, since the dawn of history, an active participation force in the terms of shaping civilizations and adapting with difficult circumstances and developing nations and societies and towns and cities, and shaping the different ruling elites in different locations, markets and ports. The GCC library has been really missing for a long time. Any kind of writings and books that document the transformation and the fascinating transformation of those elites in a scientific manner. So those who have been focused on social developments and so the history of social progress in the GCC faced many hurdles in this regard. And the cause of this, as highlighted by our colleague, the former chairman of the FNC, Mr. Mohammed Ahmed Al-Mor, the absence of logistic support and financial support for and the weakness of national archives in the GCC region, in addition to the lack of interest for publishers to focus on publishing this kind of intellectual books. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah, for this wonderful lecture. Thank you. This is a very enriching lecture, as he has mentioned. It really has a great deal of information, and in which you highlighted the fact that the GCC communities have always been full of elites and pioneers, males and females, in the different aspects of life. Yet, no sufficient spotlight was given to them. That is why the works and contributions of those elites have become unknown to the people outside this region. You have also highlighted the absence of extensive scientific research and focus on those Gulf elites for roles. And that is why the new younger generations in GCC do not know much about them. Now I would like to open the floor to questions. Please, if you have any question, raise your hand, introduce yourself, and make your question, please, quite brief, to allow the largest number of people to pose questions, please. Your Excellency, Dr. Abdullah, good evening to you. Actually, you have added great value to us. My name is Dr. Salih Al-Maaita. I am a strategic analyst. You have talked about a very important point, which has to do with the academic curricula from schools to universities. There is an obvious absence of highlighting the role of those elites. My question, Your Excellency, the Arabian Gulf elites represent, from my own perspective, the most important element of the strength of countries, and those elites can be used to serve and achieve the strategic objectives of GCC states regionally and internationally. My question, Your Excellency, since you have touched upon all of this, what you have mentioned is a set of opportunities and ambitions and not suffering or setbacks. How can we draw up a national strategy or a GCC-wide strategy to utilize the expertise of those elites? As we've mentioned before, in the university, in the Emirati Universities Association for the professors and the students who graduated, at least once a year, they should gather. They should those living elites can still speak about the rules, so we can link those concepts and relate them to young people in GCC or GCC citizens who represent the cornerstone of the present and the future, and we need to invest in them. Thank you very much. Actually, there is an experience of this in this kind, but unfortunately, we as Arabs, politics ruin everything. I am a founding member of the GCC Development Forum, which was established back in the 70s, which combined elites from all over the GCC states. Now, where the GCC Development Forum, it's moving from bad to worse. It shrinked a lot because it engaged itself in politics. And when you are engaged in politics, this country is distancing itself from this one, or this country do not allow some people to attend certain conferences, or restrict the agenda of the forum. That is why the forum really was downsized. It will be held soon in Kuwait in January. Every time the number of participants becomes smaller. I stopped even going there. It was a good idea. The elites, la crème de la crème, gather every year in that forum and look into a sensitive topic. The problem is some obnoxious groups seeped into this forum, and those kind of people corrupt beautiful things. I distanced myself from them when I realized that many of the so-called Bahraini Arab Spring revolutionists crept into this forum, and instead of discussing the development projects and the development issues that gather to the GCC region that are important to the GCC, they started attacking GCC governments. So I hope we have something a lot cleaner and a lot better, but always politics corrupt everything. Thank you. My name is Dr. Minda Al-Afifi. Your Excellency, thank you very much for this wonderful lecture. When we receive such lectures, we have come to learn. That's why we ask about the things that we have learned, and what you have taught us is very valuable. Your Excellency talked about Arabian Gulf elites. You mentioned a number of people, but elites is a Platonic concept. Plato was the first one who said elites should lead and should be produced through power and authority. Those individuals and those who learned and those who became a tribal leader or political leader will join those elites. And we have had such leaders in the community, and they shaped the community. And those who earned other benefits joined those elites. I believe this point was not really highlighted in the lecture. The second point, the relationship with India. India was ruling the GCC region from Bombay. The supreme representative of India was ruling the GCC back then. So I believe, from what Your Excellency highlighted, what do you mean by elites? Or the crème de la crème of the community? Were they the educated people and businessmen? Because we have so many of them. Or do you mean the people who have power and authority? Thank you. Actually, no doubt there's mixed concepts here. I believe elites encompass everybody, rulers and citizens, everybody in the field of his creativity, males and females. And at the beginning, I said that it includes technocrats, politicians,
كل واحد
media specialists, and everyone in his own domain. So everyone can be innovative in his own domain and become one of the elites. No doubt, rulers have played a great role. They established our countries, and they defended our homelands and their sovereignty. They were among the elites, from the writers and business people. As for the relationship with India, I really underscore the concept saying the relationship between GCC and India is eternal. If it hadn't been for India, one day we would have starved to death. All our resources and all our food and livelihood came from India. Our Arab brothers back then did not really care about the GCC. Even if you tell me that Britain prevented or did this or that, India played a major role, whether it was ruling us or not. Now we see the impact of India on everything, in the local dialects of the GCC, even in clothes. The ghutta that we wear is called ghutta. This it was originally called kotra from India. It was transformed into ghutta because our ancestors bought the white clothes from India, which had the same name, Kotra and then Ghotra. So India's influence is really evident. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Abdullah, for this lecture. No doubt, today in this region we suffer from many challenges, internal and external challenges. No doubt, the role of Arabian Gulf elites is very important to enhance this region and to empower it to face those challenges that we're facing. However, there's something that there's a set of reasons that made the elites of this region unable to do the role they should have played, as you have highlighted, for example, for the GCC Development Forum, which is facing many problems, even during their own annual gatherings. There are also a host of reasons that have to do with the freedom of speech in the GCC, which is no longer the way it used to be. In addition to the level of education, the level of education is going back in a dramatic manner, and there is weakness in reading and weakness in the sense of belonging to this region. in addition to the media itself. Our media is more of commercial media rather than development-based media. And those who ever praise or do things that have to do by people who are almost half-educated individuals and half well-cultured individuals, those are taking the lead and they're taking the forefront in our media, while the true elites and writers were excluded from our media, whether we're talking about journalism or newspapers or the TV. So the cultural establishments as well are suffering from many things, whether the weakness of financial funds and support and development support. Moreover, men of letters or people, writers and journalists, no matter how many books they write, they are not welcomed in the media. We dedicate our media to writings by foreign and expat writers and disregard our own GCC writers. So how can we ensure that they have a greater role without giving them this kind of support? I believe that this is not a question. Thank you very much. I'm facing these issues. You have talked about my own project, the project that I started myself from my own money. I did not receive any support from any official entity. No official entity said that, come on, we will help you or will assist you. No. I started this project from my own money because I enjoyed this project. And I believe that those who will participate in it also will, those who participate in it enjoy it. I believed also that I'm adding something to my homeland and to the new generation, the new rising generation. And this, these new contributions will let the new generation read and let them learn. In our past, we did not have so many satellite channels, we did not have the internet, we did not have electronic games. The main entertainment we had was reading, only reading. Thank you very much. A comment and a question. My name is Muhammad Abdulla Abdurrahman. We really enjoyed this wonderful, brief and highly concentrated lecture, which really reveals the great knowledge of Dr. Abdullah. The concept that really attracted my attention is the ability to merge, the ability to remain open and to accept others. This is a genuine element that we used to have in the Gulf and especially in the countries overlooking the sea and communicating with other communities, as you have highlighted, in India and other communities in Asia and Europe, as you have mentioned. The point is, what, especially these days, where we focus on introducing a new model for ourselves as the best nations in the field of tolerance and openness, what are the elements that let those Arabian Gulf elites or Arabian Gulf communities become more open compared to other communities and even some to other Arab and Asian nations? We had communities here, and we had in the GCC we had communities, non-Muslim communities, and Indian culture as well. Since we talked about India, so we did not really have those hurdles in front of those communities. Secondly, if we may have time, the issue of vocational training. We have talked about management of ledgers and training. How did new professions reach, let's say, the GCC communities? Yes. Once again, the early generation visited India very frequently. So they were very passionate about observation and about imitating and learning from others, just like the Japanese people. The Japanese people developed their capabilities by imitation, at the beginning. Now they have become designers and producers of everything. They try to imitate a product they found elsewhere. The first generation of GCC elites traveled to India. They saw everything and there and tried to copy things that were there here. We have thousands of examples of hundreds of prominent figures that traveled to India and brought something back to the GCC. For example, the leader of journalism in Bahrain, Atal Zaid, brought his printing press and issued the first newspaper called the Bahrain newspaper because he lived in India and he saw the Indian printing press. So he shifted an entire printing press on a ship and established his printing press in Bahrain. This was at the beginning of the 20th century. Another example, Al-Ghasaibi, Sheikh Abdurrahman Al-Ghasaibi was on Pompeii. He was representing King Abdulaziz. He exported foodstuff to Bahrain and then shifted to Najd. He would notice the new commercial businesses and how they were calculated, how they were conducted. He brought to Bahrain many advanced innovations that we did not know of in the GCC. And they came with the same Indian titles, such as Banka, Chola, and Tujuri. We did not have such things back then. They came from India with the same names and titles. As for the issue of tolerance, it is true, the GCC communities in the early generation was very tolerant community. I'll give you an example. In Bahrain, the Furjan and Dawais suburbs, you would see a Jew living nearby, a Shiite Muslim or Christians and so on. We did not have this kind of sectarian extremism except after the miserable revolution in Iran. That was the first disaster in the region. This sectarian thing. In brief, please. Actually, please allow me at the beginning, Doctor, to eject what you mentioned about Bahrain at the beginning as the smaller sister country. This is not true. We cannot calculate the size of the country and based only on its geographic distance and geographic area, but its role is based on what the role it plays. Bahrain played a major role in the GCC community, not just in GCC, but in the Arab Peninsula as a whole. Some people may not know that the Bahraini elites played a great role in the development and progress of education in many GCC states which were really underdeveloped back then, and now they have become at the forefront. We have the Bahraini elites who played a great role in this regard. Some people may not know that the Bahraini elites, the extremist Bahraini elites, also played a major role in training our brothers in the south then. Some people don't know that the real extremists in the south come from Bahrain originally. Maybe you already know about that. So my question actually, and what you have mentioned, that I hope you can look into this question even further, is the issue of undermining or marginalizing the role of Arabian Gulf elites. We want to know why. What are the reasons? Was there a secret or hidden force that really undermined the role? Or maybe the flaw is within the Arabian Gulf elites themselves? This is a very important question, and it may be a launching point or a starting point for them to play the role as we hope to see them doing. Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. But I have no answer to your question, actually. But since you have brought it up about those who destroyed the South and that they were from Bahrain, they are there. And some of them are friends of mine. Some of them have licensed the society in Bahrain. Some of them have become MPs in Bahrain. This group in Bahrain is called the Democratic Member, or Al-Member Democrati in Bahrain. Unfortunately, the bad phenomena is that all those who belong to this political group, they should have been Marxists and socialists. All of them are sectarian extremists who support the Iranian regime. This is very strange. How come you are a Marxist and you are supporting the rule of Al-Wali al-Faqih in Iran? Thank you very much. Last question, please. Very briefly, please. Good evening to you, Professor. This is a very valuable lecture. Just a simple question. In terms of elites in the cultural level, don't we have books that highlight this concept in a more clear manner? If any books, would you please tell us the title of this book? That would be great. Many have written about that, but the writings were quite limited about certain local figures for them. I'd like to mention in this context someone called, a friend of mine called Muhammad Abdulla al-Qasham from Saudi Arabia. He highlighted the elites in Saudi Arabia only. The project I'm working on will cover the whole GCC. And I mentioned in my lecture that the first section of my book called Arabian Gulf Elites, a look into the biographies. The second edition is under the same title, but has a subtitle called On the Sands of the GCC. Those two editions, one of them is already in printing now. They highlight all of those prominent figures in detail and with pictures. Some books mention them without books, but the books without pictures. But the books I have pictures of those prominent figures and elites since their childhood and throughout their lives and so on. Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. One last point. I would like to thank all the ladies and gentlemen who have attended here today, and I'd like to thank them for their patience and their attentive follow-up of the speech. I know there are many prominent figures in this hall, and it is difficult to be a speaker in front of them. That's why I said I'm not going to give a lecture or keynote speech, but I'm just talking to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you once again. And in conclusion of this speech or lecture as highlighted by Dr. Abdullah, in the name of His Excellency Professor Gamal Samed Suwaidi, the Director General of the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Abdulla Al-Madani for this wonderful lecture, and would like to thank all of you for your kind attendance, and see you soon in another event. Thank you very much, and peace be with all of you.